Imagine a metropolis where the concept of a street simply does not exist. No alleys, no sidewalks, no grand boulevards, and most strangely of all, not a single door to be found at ground level. To enter your home, you wouldn't turn a key in a lock or push open a wooden gate. Instead, you would climb a sturdy timber ladder, walk across a vast, interconnected sea of flat rooftops, and descend through a narrow hole in the ceiling. This wasn't a temporary camp or a fringe cult settlement. This was Çatalhöyük, one of the world's first true urban centers, located on the Konya plain of modern-day Turkey. Around 9,000 years ago, at a time when most of the world was still nomadic, nearly 10,000 people lived here in a dense, honeycomb-like megastructure. But why did they choose to live in a way that seems so impractical, claustrophobic, and even bizarre to the modern mind? The answer lies in a brilliant blend of security, survival, and a deeply spiritual connection to their ancestors. At first glance, Çatalhöyük looks like a defensive nightmare. There are no massive stone walls like those of later Jericho, and no moats to protect the inhabitants from invaders. However, the genius of the no-door policy was the architecture itself. By building mud brick houses right up against one another with no ground-level openings, the city became its own impenetrable fortress. In the Neolithic era, the world was a dangerous place. Wild animals like leopards and wolves roamed the plains, and rival groups were a constant threat. In Çatalhöyük, there was no gate to batter down and no weak point in a perimeter wall. The streets were the rooftops, and by simply pulling up their ladders at night, the residents became instantly unreachable. It was the ultimate high ground advantage. The entire city acted as a single, solid block of clay and timber, a prehistoric bunker that stood for over 2,000 years. For the people of Çatalhöyük, the roof was not just a cover, it was the center of their social and economic universe. Because the interior of the houses was often dark and filled with smoke from the hearth, the vast, open-air network of rooftops served as the primary living space. Archaeologists have found evidence that nearly all daily activities happened under the sun. In the heat of the afternoon, families would gather on these elevated platforms to weave intricate baskets, sharpen obsidian tools, and prepare large communal meals. It was a place of constant social interaction. You didn't wave to your neighbor across a fence, you walked across their roof to trade news or share a meal. The hole in the ceiling, the only entrance, served a dual purpose. It was the door, but it was also the lungs of the house. Directly below the ladder sat the central hearth. This design created a natural chimney effect, where the rising heat pulled fresh air down from the roof. While it kept the living quarters warm in the winter, the soot found on the walls and even on the ribs of skeletons discovered at the site tells us that life inside was a smoky, intense experience. Perhaps the most fascinating and haunting aspect of this doorless society was their relationship with the dead. In modern cities, we bury our dead far away from our living spaces. In Çatalhöyük, the world of the living and the dead were separated by only a few inches of packed clay. As archaeologists excavated the floors of these homes, they made a stunning discovery: hundreds of skeletons buried beneath the sleeping platforms. These people didn't just live in their houses, they lived on top of their ancestors. By entering through the roof, the residents were performing a ritual act. They were descending from the world of light and the sky into a dark, sacred space where their history was literally beneath their feet. The house wasn't just a shelter, it was a living shrine, a vertical bridge between the heavens and the earth. For nearly 2 millennia, this doorless, hypercommunal system worked perfectly. It provided safety, warmth, and a powerful sense of identity. But as the population grew and the climate began to shift, the social pressure of living in such close quarters, essentially having no private front door to close to the world, began to take its toll. Eventually, the honeycomb began to break apart. People started to move away from the central cluster, building standalone houses with, you guessed it, doors at ground level. The era of the rooftop city came to an end as humans began to prioritize individual space over communal security. Today, as we live in our isolated high-rises with triple-lock doors and digital security cameras, the rooftops of Çatalhöyük offer a provocative challenge. We have all the privacy in the world, yet we often suffer from a profound lack of community. The city with no doors reminds us of a time when human survival depended on being physically and socially locked into each other. It shows us that architecture is never just about buildings, it's about how we choose to relate to our neighbors, our environment, and our history. Was it a primitive survival tactic, or were they more connected to the true meaning of home than we could ever hope to be? If you're fascinated by the strange ways our ancestors lived and the secrets buried beneath our feet, hit that subscribe button. We explore the world's most incredible archaeological mysteries and hidden histories. Join our community of explorers, subscribe now and click the bell icon so you never miss a discovery. Tell us in the comments, could you handle living in a city where your neighbor's roof was your only sidewalk?